going on, Conscious Crew? Happy Tuesday. Welcome to another riveting episode of the Consciouztv platform. You already know what we're here to get into. Before we do so, go ahead and run those likes up. Thumbing up the video not only helps with YouTube's algorithm, but more importantly, it triggers up YouTube's notification system. You guys know that YouTube has not been sending out my notifications, so we need all the likes, whether you are a replay gang, whether you are a Bush baby, or whether you're active with me in real time in the sky reach. Run me a thumbs up on DVD. Yo, also, if you want to donate to the platform, you can do so on Cash App, $Consciouztv, and or PayPal.me/Consciouztv, Conscious spelled with the Z on the end, just how it is here. All handles, emails, Patreon, etc. are in the description box below. Also, if you're new here, welcome to the platform. We are at 53.6K and climbing. So welcome to all of the new subbies. It is a multi-purpose, all-purpose get in where you fit in at platform. So welcome and thank you, because teamwork absolutely makes the dream work. Last but not least, please share the stream to wherever it is you have digital community, whether that be your YouTube community wall, your Snapchat, your MySpace, your Twitter, the dark side of Tumblr, or your personal OF. I don't really give a damn where you lay the link. Just let them know the real out live and in color. I'm trying to stop cussing, y'all. With no further ado, let's go ahead and push on through.
I know a place where you can recharge your soul.
Baby, that's Consciouztv.
And in the midst of brokenness, he gon' see your asshole.
Baby, that's Consciouztv.
You gon' heal, you gon' laugh and catch a little shade.
Ooh, girl.
Y'all know he be slaying, y'all better stop playing. Come hear what he's saying.
Ladies and gentlemen.
What's going on, Conscious Crew? Happy Tuesday. Let me speak to everybody in the building. What's going on, Star? Hey, Shayla. Hey, Platinum. What's going on, Kimani's Way? Hey, Vala. What's going on, Britt the Trucker? Hey, Wade. Hey, Lady D. What's going on, Linda? Hey, Katie. Perry. Hey, y'all. Y'all run those likes up. Oh, it's 333. Look at that. Hold on. Let me make a wish upon us. Okay, y'all, I had to literally wish upon the star. Yes, God, honey, I've been catching up angel number, child, because I've been high vibrating like it's crazy out here, child. I've been catching them 222s, 111s, 444s, and it's winning. I'm also trying to stop cussing on the platform. So, I'm probably going to be slipping up, but I'm going to try to bleep myself and do some self-censoring. I'm going to try to do some creative cussing, etc. Because I had a Conscious Crew member who commented on, I think, my last live, and she said, CTV, you one of my favorite content creators. She said, every time that I got your live streams on, my kids are singing your song, your intro song. And I was like, oh my goodness, the kiddies are also watching the live stream. Now, she didn't clarify if her kids are teenagers, which they might be. They might be grown adults, hell, for all I know. But it did get me to thinking about how, I have a lot of Conscious Crew members who go to church, who are on the conservative side, or who would love to play me, in commute from, the schoolhouse to home, etc. Have the kids in the car, play me around the house, etc. Child. So I said, you know what? Let me try to dial back on the cussing and the fussing of it all. So I'm gonna try to do some work around slightly PG-13, even though overall this is a rated R show, because we all grown here, and I like to get into the sweet, the nasty, the gushy stuff, baby. Okay, but I'm trying to do some self-censoring for the sake of my Conscious Crew who want to be able to share me out and listen to me out loud, maybe even with the family, etc. So we're going to see how that goes, child. We're going to see how that goes. They hear their mama cuss every day. What's going on, Chef? Hey, say, bro. What's going on, Luna? Hey, Remy. What's going on, y'all? Hey, Amanda. What's going on, y'all? Okay, so let me go ahead and get into it, you guys. So, crazy news. I know that Jay-Z is somewhere hoping that Beyonce's next flight over the arena in that makeshift convertible, girl, just go ahead and actually falls, okay? Matter of fact, now that this lawsuit done came down the pipeline, or this dismissal to Jay-Z's lawsuit, Jay-Z might have went down there with Todd and set Beyonce up and tried to cut the cords, okay, to the Cowboy Carter convertible, tried to bring the queen down. Half her fall to her death because he ain't want to put up with her going upside his head for 40 days and 40 nights again, baby, for having the optics look all raggedy. Now that a judge has finally and fully ruled on Jay-Z's extortion lawsuit against no other than ambulance chasing Tony Buzbee, you guys. My God, my God, my God. All right. Jay-Z is known for a lot of things, shy, and until somebody take him to task, he cannot be verified as indeed a predator. Okay, we're going to pull from the Rolling Stone. Okay, I do have the actual paperwork, but it's kind of lengthy. I don't want to keep you guys here long. Plus, I want to come back and we got some other things that we got to get into as well. Okay, so Rolling Stone, a California judge reversed course Monday and fully dismissed Jay-Z's extortion and defamation case against Texas lawyer Tony Buzbee. In a 65-page ruling in Los Angeles County, Judge Mark Epstein said that he was not wholly satisfied with his decision, but he tried to balance the competing interests at play and would wait for the Court of Appeal to step in to determine whether he was right or wrong. He ended his ruling with the phrase, "Stay tuned." Okay, so there is a disclaimer. And while the judge did ultimately dismiss the suit, he is basically encouraging Jay-Z to pursue an appeal because some of how the judge had to deal with some of the legalities of the case was more interpreted. You guys know that it gets very technical. It gets very nuanced when it comes to the law and how the law can be applied. And some courts and some judges will interpret the law this way, while others will interpret it another way, which can diversify the way that judges rule in any one case, which is why we never see like a universal rule of law when it comes to a judge in any case. It could be the same exact case and a judge will rule one way and another judge will rule another way because of the way that the law can and cannot be applied and the way that judges can interpret legislation, case law, etc. So because of the complexity of the case, because this isn't like any other lawsuit, you guys. This isn't Jay-Z suing an everyday, citizen for defamation. He's suing a attorney for defamation. This is a very, very difficult thing to do because there is a certain mandate in place that kind of protect lawyers from being sued, even if the clients they represent are found to be liars or to have lied or were grifting and or were just looking for 15 minutes. That really doesn't fall per se on the attorney. And then there are certain laws in place, especially around like SA and definitely SA of a underage person, where the courts deem that as a matter of public safety and safety concern. So whether the allegations are true or not, an attorney, by some standard of ethical law, does have an obligation to help that client file suit on behalf of the defendant. Okay, so it gets really stank. It gets real. No. Okay, because Jay-Z is suing a attorney. It goes on. Jay-Z's real name is Sean Carter, sued Buzbee last year with claims that the high-profile Houston attorney knew he was peddling lies when he filed a lawsuit accusing Carter of being the male celebrity who raped a 13-year-old girl alongside Sean Diddy Combs at a New York party 25 years ago. Carter claims that Buzbee sent him 2 demand letters in early November to squeeze him for money. He claims that weeks later, Buzbee named him as a co-defendant in the Jane Doe's lawsuit against Combs because he refused to pay up in a secret settlement. Quote, there is no demand for a particular sum of money, although that is not enough to protect the letters. The real problem for Carter is that the mediation request is about the sexual abuse allegations underpinning a potential civil case and nothing else. There is no extraneous allegations as to publicizing other unrelated and unsavory things related to Carter, and there are no promises to refrain from going to law enforcement if Carter agrees to mediate and does settle, Epstein wrote in his long-awaited decision. So what the judge is basically saying is that, look, yes, there were demand letters, but demand letters are standard. There's nothing illegal about a demand letter. Attorneys are allowed to inform the defending party that you are about to be sued for this reason here, and we are open to resolving this matter, and this is where you can contact us. So the judge is saying that's practically all the letter entailed. It was not a demand for any particular amount of money, unlike in the TD Jakes case where they were seeking, 6 million Bitcoins, okay? It was a standard appropriate demand letter informing Jay-Z, and the judge is saying this letter cannot be used to imply a shakedown or extortion in and of itself, because there also were no promises made in this demand letter. It just said we're open to resolve, okay? And that's exactly what it means, open to resolve, meaning that if he still would have came to the table and wanting to provide a monetary settlement, that Tony Buzbee still might have actually gone forward and filed this lawsuit, because the lawsuit didn't demand anything. It was more so a put you on notice. Now, remember when this first had happened, it was clear that Jay-Z was really in his feelings, was really wanting to do major damage control, and for obvious reason. Anybody who's being lied on, especially with heinous claims of this kind, are going to be very upset. They'll want to go to war with the accuser, with the accuser's attorney, etc. And I'm kind of surprised now, learning a bit more about the details of this lawsuit, that Alex Spiro kind of dropped the ball in this way and kind of made some of the claims that Alex did, knowing that they were going to really be a stretch. But Alex Spiro also is a client of Jay-Z, and ultimately, if Jay-Z is pressing him, then most attorneys are going to listen to their client despite their own legal perspective. So this is interesting. Hold on, you guys. All right. It goes on. Quote, while it is true that the alleged conduct here constitutes criminal activity, defendants fall well short of threatening to go to the police unless Carter pays up, Epstein said. Quote, selling silence as to law enforcement for money is extortion, but there is no promise of silence in the criminal context here. And selling silence for money in the civil context is not extortion. It is a settlement with a non-disclosure element, okay, which I just explained. Quote, we are surprised and disappointed by this ruling, which turns on the misapplication of California law on the admissibility of the investigators in this case. Okay, remember, there were some third-party investigators that found, Miss Alabama found little Miss Jane Doe, pulled up on her trailer park and had a conversation with her on her porch and recorded her basically saying that Tony Buzbee, her attorney, had put her up to this. She initially was interested in filing suit against Diddy, not Sean Carter, who had never done anything to her. He did not sexually assault her, etc. She said all this on secret recording. And, you know, she pretty much vindicated Jay-Z. She also had let the investigators know that apparently Tony Buzbee had told her that there were threats being made against her life and it was in her best interest to agree to drop the suit, which obviously was a lie. Okay. Tony Buzbee just didn't want to tell Jane Doe that the case was falling apart, especially since Alex Spiro had pretty much debunked the entire lawsuit based upon Jane Doe's own timeline, her own, all of her own given details. They were able to show where Jay-Z was on this night that she claims that she was gang raped by Diddy and by Sean Carter. They were also able to debunk that she watched the 2000 VMAs on a jumbotron outside of the auditorium because there was no jumbotron in Times Square for the 2000 VMAs at that time. They also was able to verify that certain celebrities she claimed was at this private party at this residence, this private residence with this U-shaped driveway, were not actually even in New York. You know, certain celebrities were on tour, so there was no way she could have had the conversation that she claimed she had with them. Also, Sean Carter nor Diddy had a property that fit the description of Jane Doe. And to make matters even worse, Jay-Z and both Sean Carter actually were booked and busy at clubs the night of the VMAs. They had walk-ins at Club Lotus and Club Twirl, okay? And there are paparazzi images and surveillance and Getty images and all of that to confirm where Jay-Z and P. Diddy was. They were not partying at a private residence. They were at separate clubs, fulfilling paid gigs at these clubs. To make matters actually even worse than worse, Little Miss Jane Doe also did an interview. And the investigators and news anchors found that a lot of Jane Doe's story did not check out. They also spoke to Jane Doe's father, who basically said he never picked her up from New York in the middle of the night and drove 5 hours across town, which would have been a 10-hour commute in total. That's something he would have remembered. And that this is the first time he's ever even heard of her being at a VMA, being at a celebrity party, and being actually assaulted by celebrities in all 25 years. The first time he ever heard all of this was when she sat down with Tony Buzbee. So he was completely stomped on this whole thing. Then remember, the investigators had also ran a personal background check on Jane Doe and found that Jane Doe had a lot of mental health issues. She is autistic. She's also been arrested for assault. She lost her children. One of her baby daddies is also delusional and crazy, and for a time was claiming that he was the Messiah and that he was the living incarnated Jesus. They also found court filings of her, I think, being arrested for drugs, as well as found that, what's the other thing? Oh, that she had also lied on other men in the past. She had made false claims of rape against other men. The courts had dismissed those claims because they were meritless, etc. So Jane Doe is crazy as all that, okay? And she has a pathology of being unwell in her mind, of weaponizing rape allegations against men for whatever reason, etc. She has an entire history of doing this, and those investigators had published all of Jane Doe's business, okay, which we posted on our community wall here, as well as showed in one of the live streams that we were doing when this all had first came up. All right, But the interesting thing about these investigators, right, is that they claim they were not hirees of Roc Nation. They claim that they have no association to Roc Nation, which, to be honest, nobody believes that. Why in the hell would two random private investigators, which I think are two retired cops, go out of their way to pull up and speak to Jane Doe about the situation with Jay-Z? That really doesn't make a lot of sense. And how in the hell did they also find Jane Doe if Jane Doe is being represented as a Jane Doe? She's going by a pseudonym. So how in the hell did they even identify her? How did they know where her address is? I mean, on one hand, you can say, well, they're private investigators, sure. But it still begs the question. If she's represented as a Jane Doe, who in the hell dropped the dime that allowed them to know exactly where she was to pull up on them? Okay? Anyway, the article goes on to say, quote, "We are surprised and disappointed by this ruling, which turns on the misapplication of California law on the admissibility of the investigators," statements Carter's lawyer, Alex Spiro, tells Rolling Stone in a statement. Quote, "Notably, the judge expressly states that his decision would have changed dramatically if he had admitted the statements into evidence, as they would have shown not only that Carter had nothing to do with any actual assault on Doe, but that Buzbee knew it. And thus, the court would come out the other way on this motion. What does it say about our justice system if someone can knowingly bring about completely false claims of the most heinous nature imaginable against an innocent individual and get away with it on a technicality?" Spiro adds, quote, "We plan to appeal this case immediately." Quote, "Yet another huge win," Buzbee wrote on X. Quote, "John Doe's case against me and the Buzbee law firm alleging extortion and defamation was thrown out by the court, as I said when it was filed. The case was completely meritless. We will now seek attorney fees against John Doe for bringing the legally flawed case." Okay, so now Tony Buzbee is planning on pulling a reverse Uno the way that Jay-Z pulled a reverse Uno and get his attorney fees paid out by Jay-Z. Now, I'm sure he won't be able to do that if they are planning to appeal this case, etc. If the appeals court is going to rule in Buzbee's favor, only then probably will he be able to go in and reclaim anything. But once Alex Spiro files for an appeal, that's pretty much going to halt any recovery on Tony Buzbee's part. So Tony Buzbee is not out of the gate just yet, and even the judge encourages Jay-Z to pursue an appeal and have a second look at this, because the judge, did his best, as they said, to be as competent and clear. However, this is very subjective and a very complicated case due to the fact that Jay-Z is suing an attorney, which is protected in a lot of ways from things like this. No matter the claims peddled by the client of that attorney, and no matter whether the attorney vetted the case to the best of their ability or not. Okay. At a hearing in February, Epstein said he was leaning toward only allowing some of Carter's defamation claims to proceed. Then at a subsequent hearing in March, he signaled he had changed his mind and was inclined to let the Roc Nation founder proceed with his extortion claims as well. He said he reconsidered his position based on stunning new evidence collected by private investigators and submitted by Jay-Z's lawyers. The new evidence was a recorded conversation between investigators and the Jane Doe on her front porch in Alabama in February. The woman allegedly said, quote, "It was more Diddy, but Buzbee brought Jay-Z into it. She appeared to tell the investigators that it was Buzbee who pushed her into publicly naming Jay-Z as one of her assailants." quote, if the evidence can be considered and the court believes it can be considered for this motion, it supports not only the defamation cause of the action, but also the extortion cause of action. Judge Mark Epstein wrote in his tentative ruling issued in March, quote, if one accepts Doe's statements to the investigators at face value, then she at least inferentially did not authorize the settlement letter to be sent or even conclude that she was going to sue Carter at the time the letter was mailed. Without a present intent to bring a lawsuit, the litigation privilege will fail. Rolling Stone previously obtained a portion of the alleged doorstep discussion with the Jane Doe. In the snippet, one of the investigators specifically asked if Doe was saying that Jay-Z, born Sean Carter, was at the after party, but, quote, didn't have anything to do with any actual acts towards you. She says, yeah. The other investigator then asked if it was Buzbee who suggested Jay-Z had a role in the alleged attack following the MTV Video Music Awards in 2000. Quote, he was the one that kind of pushed me towards going forward with him with Jay-Z, the woman replied. Buzbee's lawyers fought the admissibility and relevance of the conversation. Carter then submitted the recording to the judge and he reviewed it before issuing his ruling. He noted that the conversation was, quote, not as clear as either party would like, and that Jane Doe now reports she felt intimidated and threatened by the investigators. He said ultimately it appeared to the court that Doe's interest in the interview was to go along with the suggestions the investigators made. It was in Doe's interest to go along with the investigators here because that way she would not be sued for malicious prosecution. It was in Doe's interest to go along with the investigators here because that would keep her name out of the press, he wrote. Quote, all of that, the situation would change and change dramatically if the investigators' declarations as to the conversation with Doe were admissible for the truth of what Doe stated, Epstein wrote. If that were the case, then there would be some evidence not only that Carter had nothing to do with any actual assault on Doe, but that Buzbee knew it in the sense that, according to Doe, it was Buzbee that kept pressing to get Doe to implicate Carter. When Jay-Z first sued Buzbee anonymously in November, he claimed the high-powered Houston attorney was shamelessly trying to extort him while representing dozens of plaintiffs with claims against indicted music mogul Sean Carter. 3 weeks later, Buzbee filed the amended complaint naming Carter as the male celebrity who allegedly raped Doe alongside Combs when she was a minor. Carter immediately and vehemently denied Doe's allegations and confirmed that he was the Doe who filed the extortion lawsuit. The Jane Doe went on to voluntarily dismiss her entire complaint against Carter and Combs with prejudice, meaning that it can't be filed again. It cannot. On February 14th, after admitting that there were inconsistencies in her story. Since then, Carter has filed a separate defamation lawsuit against Doe in Alabama, claiming that she and Buzbee engaged in an evil conspiracy to extort him with a completely fabricated and wildly horrific rape claim. In a sworn statement, Carter said that he considered Buzbee's demand letter an existential threat. I felt that Mr. Buzbee was placing a GUN to my head, that I either bow to his demands or endure personal and financial ruin. His action caused me mental anguish about the ticking time bomb and what it would do to me, my family, and my hard-earned reputation, he wrote. Combs, meanwhile, is currently on a trial for SEX trafficking, racketeering, conspiracy, and transportation to engage in prostitution. If convicted as charged, he faces 15 years to life in prison. Combs has been sued by dozens of plaintiffs alleging actual misconduct, the music mogul 55, All right, so here's my takeaway, because I did read the legal paperwork. I think that Jay-Z and Alex Spiro moved too fast, because Jay-Z filed suit against Buzbee before Buzbee had amended the complaint and included Jay-Z in it. And so if Jay-Z would have waited to file against Buzbee and just saw what Buzbee was going to do as a result of pretty much acquiescing to the demand letters, and then allowed that lawsuit to completely play out by and by through and through, I think that Jay-Z would have had a better attempt at really swaying the courts, because he had to do a lot of as he's litigating this case, the case against him is unfolding. So he's having to slowly implement the new shit that's coming up in that suit into this suit to make it make sense to the judge, because initially out of the gate, Jay-Z wasn't working with a lot when he first filed extortion. He just kind of had these demand letters and had the perceivable threat of this attorney going forward with what he knew to be a frivolous case. Now, remember, they also clocked the ish out of Tony Buzbee, who had to really drop the Jay-Z case because, for one, it was meritless. It was completely meritless. They completely debunked the crap out of Jane Doe's case. I mean, by and by, through and through, it couldn't have been a more meritless case by a landslide than what it was. But on two, Alex Spiro was the one who had put the Southern District of New York courts on notice that Tony Buzbee had not even sought permission to even litigate this case in their court, because Tony Buzbee is a Houston-based attorney. And because of that, he would have had to first seek permission to try the case in their courts, which he did not. He forfeited that. And then the judge allegedly clocked Tony Buzbee using another law firm that he was co-litigating with in the Diddy Jay-Z lawsuit, that he was using their court login information, etc., which all of this was completely inappropriate. Okay, now remember, Jay-Z's attorney Alex Spiro also got chewed out. The judge called Alex Spiro out for doing too much, for being a little bit too pushy, for being a little bit too aggressive in his filings, because Alex Spiro was really trying to wrap this thing up, because Jay-Z was reportedly getting nunchucked from Beyonce and Solange the entire time that this suit was going on. Beyonce had to even push back her Cowboy Carter dates because of the negative publicity going on around her husband at the time that she was initially going to make her announcement that she was going on tour again, girl. So there was a lot going on in the Cowboy Carter household. Things were getting real thick, okay? What Attorney Simone Redwine had let us be known is that when the judge had chastised Alex Spiro, told him that he needed to follow proper protocol before asking her to dismiss this lawsuit, Attorney Simone Redwine said that what this meant is that the judge was reminding Alex Spiro that, hey, before you ask me to dismiss this case, you need to first and foremost go ask Tony Buzbee to drop the suit. Okay? If you have all this evidence that debunks his client's testimony and allegations, go to him, tell him what you have, let him review that, let him talk to his client, and then y'all come to a joint consensus, and then get back to me with that, and I will review it and potentially honor it. Well, after Alex Spiro did just that and gave over to Tony Buzbee that entire bullet point presentation that he gave to the public, Tony Buzbee went to Jane Doe and was like, hey, we don't got a case. We need to drop this thing. However, because Tony Buzbee is so egotistical and narcissistic and refuses to take an L, instead of just telling Jane Doe the truth, he also put 20 on 10 and said, look, we need to drop this suit because Jay-Z got the goons on our behinds. And your life is in danger. This is not worth it. This is where the buck ends, which is why she's saying to the investigators that Buzbee told her that her life was under threat and under duress, and she was scared to go any further in the litigation, even though, once again, the whole claim was completely fabricated and a lie altogether, period. So the judge then ruled in favor of Diddy and Jay-Z, and the case was dropped without a prejudice, etc. But of course, this is Jay-Z, Black billionaire, and married to one of the most famous, respected musicians, performers, and entertainers in the 21st century, Beyonce. So it wasn't enough to satisfy Jay-Z to just have this suit dismissed. Jay-Z really wanted a truly vindicating verdict, something that says, I am explicitly innocent and I have been defamed, and this person lied and committed defamation, okay? Because he don't want no mixed words, okay? So Jay-Z did not find the dropping of the lawsuit enough, baby, okay? He need it in black and white that she lied. So now he has a lawsuit against Jane Doe and Tony Buzbee, okay? So there's that lawsuit that's still in work. This was the lawsuit that Jay-Z filed before Tony Buzbee even officially filed against him. So it's going to be interesting to see now what happens in that litigation. It's going to be interesting to see, since Tony Buzbee got a win here, at least for now, until this thing goes to the appeals court, which could pull a reverse Uno. They could find Tony Buzbee liable, and Jay-Z could get a reverse Uno. Okay, so the fat lady ain't sunk just yet on the matter. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Miss Jane Doe, because once again, there are laws put in place that do protect even accusers who make these type of claims, which is why a lot of people are quick to file frivolous lawsuits of SA, etc., because there's not going to be a lot of legal consequence, even if they're found to be full of ish. Okay? And matter of fact, I think that there's specific laws in place in New York that also not only protect attorneys who file these type of allegations on behalf of their clients, but that also once again protect these type of accusers with these types of claims. So that's what Jay-Z is really working around, okay? And then they're also, according to the actual paperwork, the judge also didn't quite feel like Jay-Z proved beyond a benefit of a doubt that Tony Buzbee was malicious in filing this lawsuit. Jay-Z did try to make, all the claim that Tony Buzbee should have did. It's not a attorney's job per se to entirely vet a claim, but they do have to make a reasonable, at face value, shallow look and investigation into the claims to make sure that there is some sense of merit and foundation to go and file this thing. Because if Tony Buzbee had done just 5% of the work that NBC did, they would have known that there were not going to be any witnesses to this case. They would have known that her father was not going to be able to corroborate this story, even though she claims that he was the one that she called and picked her up at a random gas station after this whole ordeal. Tony Buzbee would have known that Benji Madden, the musician, was not even in New York at the time, so there is no way she could have spoke to him and his brother about his Last Supper tattoo. Okay, if they were arguing that if Tony Buzbee, would have just made the most basic attempt, girl, to look through this lady's stuff, he would have been able to know that it was frivolous. But the judge's attitude is that that's an assumption. Tony Buzbee very well might have decided not to go forward with the claim, or, he would have still gone forward because, once again, a lawyer is allowed to file a suit on behalf of someone accusing someone of this type of crime, okay? And a lawyer doesn't have to per se do some in-depth level of vetting. They just have to, at the very least, really believe pretty much in the sincerity of the client about what they are claiming. So Jay-Z's back is against the wall. It's going to look optically bad if he loses the appeal. It's going to look optically bad that he lost this suit. It's going to look optically bad if he loses the Jane Doe suit, because it's just going to swallow up what could have just been enough of a victory with him getting the initial lawsuit against him dismissed. So this is interesting. I know Jay-Z is somewhere mad as hell, and dumb investigators are about to turn into the goons. Okay? I already told y'all, baby, somebody gonna probably come up stinking and ranking, messing around with Jay-Z head top like this girl, because this is a mess. I'm sure Alex Spiro is also very upset, because he just, as he said, this is a gross miscarriage of justice. Okay, Alex Spiro is like, look, there's more than enough here. This woman is full of crap. This is a open and shut case. Tony Buzbee, did not operate ethically, etc. He did not put any effort at all into vetting this client, and that this is a bunch of hogwash. Okay, and hell, to some degree, even the judge also kind of is self-doubting their ruling as well, which is why they're encouraging Jay-Z to appeal and have it reviewed. So it may come out that this judge did do a piss poor job of, how they interpreted the law that ultimately resulted in Jay-Z losing the lawsuit. So we will be keeping up, baby, because this ain't the end, according to Alex Spiro, baby. They just beginning. Okay, let me take some comments here. What's going on, Miss Beauty? The judge suggested that he appeal. Yes, he did. What's going on, Elijah? Teresa says Jay got his foot on Buz's neck like Cardi on a baby. Okay, when we beef, we gonna be forever. Bugs claimed he had 5 or so ex-law enforcement officers that did the vetting. Absolutely not. Todd says, LMAO, if I am Jay-Z, I would be like, let's run that bike. Oh, yeah, baby. Alex said we're running that bike. He's not going to let his foot. Oh, no, baby. Not at all. Jay-Z can't afford this. He married to somebody that he can't back down. He got to clear this for him and Beyonce's sake, okay? So Jay-Z ain't going nowhere, baby, okay? He about to pull on Meg's or residuals, baby. He about to pull on any other Rock Nation artist's residual, girl, okay? It's about to be a Jay-Z type of hot boy summer in them courts, girl. Oh, yes, it is. What's going on, Rumors and Tea? Let me see here, which makes no sense if that controlled courts have done something like this happen. The world is effed up. Right is wrong and wrong. Yeah, sometimes the courts can make worse, especially when it comes to public figures, right? Because public figures are really riding on the courts, especially when things are bullcrap. They're really trusting the courts to emphasize that and to conclude that, because those conclusions are going to be used to help to combat the fallout of whatever the allegations are. So when that doesn't happen, even in a case like this where Jane Doe is a liar, she did lie. Tony Buzbee is an ambulance chasing attorney. He tried to backdoor the Southern District Courts of New York himself. His own behavior is completely fraudulent in this case. He tried to get away with litigating a case in their courts, knowing that this is the protocol across the board, doubled down on it, and then I almost tried to play in the court space when confronted about it. So, all of that should speak for something. So it's a good thing that this judge is admitting that they might have dropped the ball in this case. So, yes, take it to the appeals, okay? Because the judge is very insecure about their ruling. So, hopefully, whomever the appeal court judges will be aren't a group of dummies and are a lot more competent and will be a lot more clear in their assessment and their analysis of this case. And, we'll see what happens. Todd says, absolutely incredible. Legal slander is diabolical, my God, today in my best CTV voice. Beto J, if you don't fix this, someone's going to get fired. That part, child, okay? So, child, y'all tell me what y'all think, girl. Jay-Z having a real bad Tuesday, child. Tony Buzbee done got to, and y'all know that Tony Buzbee needed this, baby, because he was getting towed up out here in these courts. Y'all know he had to drop over a dozen of the P. Diddy lawsuits because of the issue of him backdooring the courts, not seeking their permission. That wasn't an isolated defrauding of the courts. In Jay-Z's case, Tony Buzbee did this in 15 other lawsuits that he filed on people as it relates to Diddy. So he had to dismiss all of that stuff. So he needed a win somewhere. He needed something to restore, okay, the Yep reviews on his law firm, child. So you know he gonna be bragging and carrying this, child. So we'll see if a second round of this via the appeals courts is going to snatch and smack that smile off his face, child. I would keep you guys all on notice. And I will be returning in 30 minutes with a hot topic. So make sure you guys have your notification bell set to all. Make sure that you guys thumbs up this video. We need order the likes, order the likes, order the likes, order the likes. Please share the stream out and tell a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend. And once again, all donation information is on the description box below. I thank you guys in advance, and I will see you guys later. Peace.